You're watching LMCC, your community TV.
What do a ceramics artist, a jewelry and fiber artist, and a sculptor all have in common? Well, besides being part of the Lake Minnetonka studio tour, they all tell stories through their art. We're going to start off with my good friend Lisa Heil. She is, well, I knew her first as a jewelry maker. She makes absolutely beautiful necklaces and bracelets. She has the best bead collection in the whole wide world. True?
Well, close.
Probably. And she also, in May, took up basket weaving. And so we have some of her work here, but she's just made amazing progress in that art. So Lisa, what do you love about weaving baskets?
Well, I love playing with colors. So this will be the first time I've ever worked with paint. So that's part of what's exciting about being able to bring in different colors and textures and patterns.
Okay, now I'm going to stop here and let you talk a little bit about the process of, because you're talking about paint and baskets, and those aren't things that I think of that go together. So first of all, let's talk about the process, and also, do you ever start off in one direction and end up someplace else with a piece?
All the time.
All the time, okay. That's art, isn't it?
So I started out working with reed about back in March, and then I had seen a pattern where you can take watercolor paper, it's very heavy, and paint it on both sides, and then run it through a pasta machine. And you get these 1/4-inch strips or weavers. So I brought several different pieces today with different patterns and embellishments.
They're just beautiful. They really are. All the colors are so stunning. And I love the way that you combine your two loves with the jewelry and the baskets. So can you talk a little bit about the process as you select a piece of jewelry to go onto the piece?
Okay. So this is one piece where I went ahead and wove the piece, and then once it's finished, then I get a sense of how I want to embellish it. So for this one, what I did is it's like creating a necklace, and I wove and got the pattern, and then I wove it into the sculpture itself.
You wove in the jewels.
Yeah, so the jewels are on a wire, just like I would do for making jewelry, but I wove it into the actual piece itself. Yeah. So.
Now, you told me you had some pieces that you could take the jewelry off and wear. Could you show us something like that?
Well, this piece is actually a little bit like that. I've actually found a contemporary piece that I thought accented this piece, and then if the individual wants to, they can remove it and then put it back on. I also have a number of pieces where these are vintage, where you can actually take off the earring and put it on and wear the earrings.
Like with a scarf or,
yeah.
Both earrings, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then I did a number of pieces where you can remove the pin and put it back on.
Nice, nice. Do you have some that we could kind of decide about the embellishments? Did you have something we could talk about?
Yeah, what I did is this is the embellishment I decided for this piece, but if you put a different embellishment, it really changes the look quite a bit.
Yes.
And let's see, this one, so this would be one, or I could do something like that.
That's so pretty.
So you can see there's just infinite possibilities, and a lot of these pieces are just, this is this is my very first basket I made with the painted, this is called a bias weave, and it's very complex. And so this would be another option.
So how long does it take you to make a basket like that, a small
This
basket?
size? Mm-hmm. Well, it's about a 15-step process that goes over a period of 3 to 4 days. A piece like this, I spent over a week making this piece.
So people can look at these on the tour. Will they be at your home? Will your home be open for them?
Well, Patti, who's also, this will be at her studio in May for the 2 days. Nice. And so you'll get to see both myself and Patti. And a lot of the studios will have more than one guest artist.
Oh,
That
okay.
way you can see up to 1 to 3, 4 artists at one studio.
That'll be nice. Oh, we really didn't talk about the jewelry, so maybe is there anything you'd like to point out about any of the pieces?
Well, I like the complexities. One of the things I like to do with some pieces, you'll see the ones that are multi-strand. You can actually wear, I design it so that you can wear 1, 2, or 3 strands or more. So you can take it off and mix them.
Nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, thank you for joining us today, Lisa.
Thank you.
We're here today in Steve Hemingway's studio, and it's also part of the tour. And Steve has been gracious enough to open it up for us today. Steve has been a ceramics artist all his life, he tells me. Steve, what draws you to clay?
I think the plasticity of it. I think when you touch clay, there's a sensuous immediacy to it. It responds directly to your hand. So it enables you to be creative.
So how did you discover clay? What was your first experience with it?
Well, I remember making mud pies.
Mud pies.
And I remember taking them very seriously, and they were mandalas, which I still make.
Really? So you didn't just throw the mud into the tin pan and that was it, set it out to bake?
Oh no, I kind of drew it out on the ground and used some rocks and some sticks. I remember my buddy looking at me, because we were very young, we were probably 5. It's like, what is wrong with this guy?
Well, and then how early was it when you realized that you are an artist?
It was before I could read and write.
Really?
Because I was the youngest kid, and my sisters and brothers were reading the funnies. And then, so I thought I had to, and I started looking at them, but before long I was drawing them.
Oh.
And that was a bird on my Easter basket. And I'm like, and with a volcano.
Wow.
And I was thinking, this is great. I mean, this is really cool. Because I was really quiet as a kid.
Were you?
So it helped me communicate.
Well, so you use your art to tell story, I understand. Talk about that process a little bit.
Well, I mean, this is a bee pod. It's...
Wait, we're going to stop, and we're going to say, look at this beautiful pot, a bee pot. Tell me what a bee pot is before we go any further.
Well, my intent, I like pattern. I like pattern a great deal.
Okay.
And I like form, which I think you have to if you're throwing pots. You have to be concerned about form.
Right.
And I like the way pattern works on form. And I've always done insects, and I remember putting pools in when I was in high school and collecting insects so that I could take them home and do watercolors of them.
Oh, interesting.
There are pieces that I think that are very much a story, and they're created around a narrative, like a fishing trip or, experiences that I've had. And I always look back, a lot of my work is, on my computer as a photograph. And when I look back at the work, I look at them as being like pages from my diary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not a,
So they bring
I'm
a
not a
whole
writer,
memory.
I'm an artist. I had a professor when I was creating narrative with paintings I was doing, and he's like, well, why don't you go into journalism? And it's like, well, I'm not a writer. And I always have been.
Yeah. So I notice, like you say, there's the design and there's the story and then there's this beautiful shape. And to me, they all give your work a sense of timelessness. Am I right about that, that you're really creating something that has a classical feel?
I think so. There's a deep history in pottery. I mean, there's only so many forms you can work with.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at modern ceramics, a lot of time, even very contemporary ceramics, you can trace them back to the roots of ceramics. I think in Minnesota there's a lot of Minge pots, Japanese folk pottery. Warren McKenzie brought that here, and it comes from Japan and the East. And my influences are from the West. I'm more interested in Greek pots. I'm more interested in the story on that Greek pot of the warriors or the mythology that's on that pot.
So you would go back to the Greek pottery
I think
heritage.
so too. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And,
Because you really don't see a lot of that. You're right. You do see a lot of the other kind of, or like the kind of pots you'd throw in college class. When you took the ceramics class, that kind of thing. You see a lot of simple things, but these are not. These are like a different level, I think.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's. I think it's interesting that a lot of the pieces are raku fired, which is an Eastern technique.
Right.
But my influences are really from the West, and the raku process just stresses the work. It'll craze it and create flashing and movement. And I've had people say they look like they've been dug out of the ground. And I think that's part of the process. And that gives them that timeless feel, like were these made 100 years ago, 200, 500 years ago, were they made yesterday?
But then you also bring in like the nature and the fishing and the
Oh, absolutely.
animals and birds and
Yeah.
things like that. So.
Yeah, and that's where the inspiration really comes from, is nature.
So when you finish a pot, let's say this piece right here, what makes you feel successful? What makes you like have that moment of, that's what I really was trying to do? I mean, is there one part of it that's really?
I don't know. I think you come to terms with every piece.
Oh.
I mean, there's the conception in your head of what this should be, and then through the process of material and the work that you put into it, it always changes. I mean, the fire has something to say about the piece, and a lot of that's out of my control. So I think it's a matter of coming to terms with things. I think I need a lot of affirmation from people with my work, because there are pieces that I had no intention of ever putting out there that my wife tells me we should, and as soon as someone comes up and goes, oh wow, I really like that, then that's the affirmation. And I think in part that's where it comes from.
So it might not match exactly what's in your head when you start out, but things take a life of their own, don't they?
Oh yeah, I'm really fearful of creating a perfect piece.
Oh.
I mean, where do you go from there?
Right.
I mean, it's like a mountain without a top. You just keep going.
That's true. Because every piece you can take something and go another level.
Oh, every piece there's something that I can say, oh, I should have done this. Oh, I could have done that.
Right.
So it just builds upon itself.
Right. So where would we find your art if we were to go look for a Steve Hemingway original?
Well, there's some galleries that handle it, but we have a showroom in Northeast Minneapolis in the Northrop King building.
Okay.
And then once a year we open this studio up for the public to view the work. It's the one time of the year that we open this up with finished pieces. The idea is that in this studio we finish work and it leaves the studio.
I
And it
see.
goes
So you don't
someplace
have a lot of
else.
finished pieces in
They're
there?
rarely.
Right.
One time a year.
Got it.
And when we meet with the public in Northrop King, I'm always telling them, if you're interested to see where the studio is and where this is produced, then come to this tour. And we promote the tour that way. And I think for a lot of people, they're curious about, where is art made and how is art made. And the studio is nice and clean now, but
It really
a couple
is.
days ago, it was a real mess.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you
It's
very
ready
much.
for the
I
tour.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too. Well, thank you, Steve. This has been great chatting with you.
My pleasure.
So now we're here talking with Patti Carmody Smith, and Patti is a sculptor who works in mixed media. And it's interesting that Patti, you started out as a fiber artist, and many of her fiber pieces have like a three-dimensional quality, and many of her sculptures now can almost have two-dimensional elements. I think that's so interesting that you really can see the flow throughout your career as an artist. So she makes really beautiful pieces. And the thing I like most about Patti's work is that they're very refined technically, but they're also so creative. So Patti, how do you combine those two aspects of art?
I think that having the technical challenges and expertise balances very nicely with the inspiration, and it makes being an artist fun for me because there's all this room for growth and experimentation. And I love to mix materials together, so it's really perfect for me because every time a new material comes into my life, I have to learn another process, and which is a bigger palette for my voice as an artist. So I started with fiber, and then that went into, I did art dolls after that, so more
Art
sculptural
dolls.
art dolls, right, with fabric and things. And then I came up with this sculptural process. And then mosaic came into my life, and then collage after that. So now they're all combined, and you can see, I can talk a little bit about some of these pieces. So this combines.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's actually, I had made lots and lots of birds with this base. So this is tempered glass that's on a base, and this is my sculptural technique. And I wanted to change it up, so I started thinking about a wall. That maybe I'd want to have some birds
Rather
on a
than
wall.
a
Right,
globe.
rather than on that, yeah. So then I had a 40th reunion, and I'm from Eden Prairie, and I think we were talking about there's a graffiti bridge in Eden Prairie. Prince had a video that was named after the graffiti bridge.
Okay, I'm from North Carolina. I don't know
Yeah,
about this, but
this
I'll
is
have to go.
a local town just 5 miles from here.
Right.
So there's this graffiti bridge, so I thought, well, the wall would be really neat with graffiti.
Very nice.
So then I collaged the wall, which is with paper, and then mosaicked over it, and then the birds are sculpture. So I was able to combine all of those things to be able to say what I wanted to say, and this is called Summer of Love.
Oh, it's lovely.
So that, in a nutshell, kind of is how I work. I really like materials a lot, love a challenge. So I just can continue on expanding and growing, and the inspiration is never a problem.
Right.
I think it builds, Steve mentioned this too, it builds from previous bodies of work. So there's this momentum there from creating lots and lots and lots of hours of creating, and a certain discipline too, to be able to rein that in and actually take the chance with an inspiration to put it into a form.
Okay.
And then to be able to, cut your losses too, because that happens at times.
When something's not going well,
Right,
just to stop.
exactly. But it also, things change a lot, and there's frustration and things like that go along. That's where the discipline and tenacity is really important in being an artist.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that discipline. Do you say I'm going to work this much per day or week, or do you have times that you go in, or how does that work for you?
My studio's right in the basement, so that'll be open for the tour, and we remodeled it, and it's a beautiful space. And actually, I love to work. It's great.
Well, you're a fabulous artist, and I think that if people go to the tour, and we hope you do, you'll really be able to see the range of Patti's work, because she's got such interesting different directions that you've gone into. You've got things that would be perfect on a wall, and you've got things that would be perfect, sitting on my dining room table, surrounded by other lovely things. So I really appreciate that about your work. Well, Patti, what can you tell us about the tour?
The tour is a group of 11 artists that live in the Minnetonka, Deep Haven, and Excelsior communities. Okay. And we're opening up our studios, and there'll be guest artists at several of the sites. It's the first weekend in May. So we also have a website, LakeMinnetonkaStudioTour.com. And we're on Facebook too, so like us on Facebook, and then you'll see the updates as we're getting ready for the tour, people getting their places cleaned up, and previews of some of the work.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of the organizational team for that. And I also just want to step aside so that people can take a good look at this beautiful creature here before we go. That's such a happy piece, as all your pieces are. Really a lot of joy in them. So thank you, Patti.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on The Pulse, and we hope that you get out and enjoy the tour. By the way, it's free, and there'll be 26 artists that you can take a look at their art. So maybe you'll find that one-of-a-kind piece, and maybe you'll be inspired to create something of your own. So now, as we close, we want you to enjoy some of the images from the artists on the tour.
Your mountain face, pin tucked right into place, broken by the valley you made, looking back from where I came, dug in, dug out of this dirt and stone. Big sky smiling from the great unknown. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Pulling up roots, breaking my back for the cause. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I'm not lost. I'm not lost. I'm not lost. highway, straight between two lanes. Waters built a bridge and made me stay. Watch the clay and years away. Breathe in, breathe out this ancient home. Big sky and me, we steadily hold. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Pulling up roots, breaking my back for the cause. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I'm not lost, I'm not lost, I'm not lost. Another spoke in the wheel touched my head, and I'm here somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Pulling up roots, breaking my back for the cause. Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I'm not lost, I'm not lost, I'm not lost, I'm not